What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and this is part 47 of my reviewing and ranking Frank Zappa's guitar solos within the context of an album. Today, Zappa in New York. The 1991 CD release version that had like the handful of bonus tracks. We'd have far fewer solos without that. I will eventually get around to a Zinni 40th anniversary, but right now it is just the 8 solos on that 91 2 CD release. I'm going to rank them from my least favorite to my favorite, and then I will show where I think this album falls among the other albums based on guitar solos only. These were Christmas shows in 1976, pretty much kind of the same band that he had in fall 76 with some extra like horn players and extra percussionists and just kind of a bigger, almost 88 sounding type band. Fantastic release. But yeah, here's what we got. At number 8, I Promise Not To, aka Lather, as it would eventually be called. That really thin, crystallized sound in his guitar solo, kind of jazzy, fluidy, just kind of short, atmospheric, kind of dancing around this little lather vibe. It is, I think it's maybe overshadowed by the Jobson solo that follows, which is just like perfect, like fits this like lather energy perfect, this I Promise Not To perfect. So it's not a bad solo, but just considering what the other 7 are on here, it's probably my least favorite. Really short, just kind of there to like, almost like a short little 30, 45 second placeholder. Number 7 is the Purple Lagoon Approximate. This is an overdubbed solo that there was a percussion solo that Frank thought was too boring, and so he overdubbed a guitar solo. It's obviously overdubbed. I don't think the tone of his guitar matches the vibe of the rest of it. It just literally feels like you have this like live performance with this guitar just laid out straight on top of it. The guitar solo itself maybe has some interesting ideas and maybe would work in a different context, but I've never liked this version of this song because of that solo. It just takes me out of the moment. It obviously feels like it's just injected into something. I wish Frank had let the listener decide for themselves whether the percussion solo was too boring or not. I can't get past everything about the solo to actually pay attention to the guitar playing. Though when I do, it's kind of interesting and there are some good moments. Kind of gets crazy, horns come in, but still, I wish Frank hadn't done it. That's number 7. Number 6 is I'm the Slime. There's not much to this guitar solo. It is buried beneath horns and groove and this fantastic Jobson keyboard part that is ridiculous. It just almost sounds like a news type report thing, just kind of bouncing over the slime. The energy is just incredible. Frank just seems like he's lost in the chaos, but it works. Every once in a while, his guitar kind of pops up and you're like, oh yeah, this is a solo. But it's just like joyful, blissful, song-ending chaos, but not really chaos because it's incredibly structured. But just there's so much going on. And Frank's solo is just kind of in the midst of it, dancing around and flying. So the solo itself maybe is not that great, but the moment is fantastic. That's 6, I'm the Slime. Number 5, Punky's Whips. Pretty much a straightforward Punky's Whips, pretty standard. The horns come in towards the end. It does what it's supposed to do for a Punky's Whip solo. So pretty nice. What else we got? Number 4 is Pound for a Brown on the Bus. Again, that kind of crystallized tone that Frank is playing with here. Kind of jazzy, kind of light, kind of airy. Yeah, I mean, doesn't really go too far out. Stays pretty just straightforward and nothing too crazy or weird. But it's just so fluid and it just sounds so nice. And it's such a neat little calm, sort of straightforward, almost new age. I don't want to say maybe new age jazzy, but it's just neat to hear this band doing Pound for a Brown and then Frank just giving us this really light, breezy kind of like almost nothing's at stake, but just to have fun and play the guitar type solo. It just works really well, especially coming after the just like burst of joy that is I'm the Slime. And then the next 3, I think, are without a doubt the meat of what this release has to offer. Number 3 is The Torture Never Stops. we're kind of into that two-part solo where the first part's a little more like that crystallized, cleaner, kind of sparkly guitar sound. Before like midway through, Frank kind of digs in a little bit. The dig in is not as dramatic as it would be in like tours to come. I'm thinking of like Fall 77 in particular. By Winter 78, the whole thing would just be a monster. But once we get that dig in, it kind of like, it almost seems like Frank is maybe just treading water for the first half of the solo. There's some interesting ideas. The rhythm section is fantastic. Bozio and O'Hearn are just killing it. But it almost seems like we're not really going anywhere and just kind of looking for ideas. And then once we dig in, it just all makes sense and we're there, and Frank just starts like getting a little more interesting, and we don't really ever get too crazy, or the energy doesn't build to sort of epic Winter 78 heights. But it's a pretty intense solo, and Frank's playing is pretty I don't know, the way he feeds off Bozio and O'Hearn are just fantastic. And you're hearing that in maybe a little more of a subtler way, even when he starts digging in and gets a little more nasty. There are points in this solo where he does just get out, just straight up nasty for like 4 bars at a time, and things are just crazy before it kind of reels in a little bit. But yeah, it's just really, really good. Ends too shortly, too soonly, too briefly. None of those things make real grammatical sense. But I think if it had been longer, it maybe could have passed number 2. But it does seem like the plug is pulled a little early. I wouldn't rank it up there with any of maybe the all-time great Torture Never Stops. That Halloween 77 box set has better Torture Never Stops on there. Obviously, the Stage 1. Obviously, Stage 1 is better. Rat Tamago, which is a torture solo, is better. But it's a good torture solo. It makes me happy. Number 2, once again, this song surprising me by bringing the guitar solos when I'm not really a fan of the song. Illinois Enema Bandit. Love the beginning of this. The band is just playing that dun dun vamp, just this really simple vamp in the background. They're giving it their all, and Bozio, of course, is adding flavor, and O'Hearn's doing what he can. And Frank's just kind of playful, a lot of space early. He's letting things like, it almost sounds like not a Frank solo, like someone who's a little more dramatic and playing with the audience, and like teasing them and goading them before kind of getting in. But it's really playful. He's kind of just playing around with the vamp and giving space, and like it just seems like he's really in the moment in the best way possible, and like responding to O'Hearn and Bozio. And then like the intensity just kind of slowly builds. At one point, O'Hearn just totally starts like up in the intensity with just this driving bass line, and it just seems like we're really gonna like reach this volcanic peak. But luckily we kind of pull the plug on that and go back to like more like just Frank attacking and not necessarily like heading towards this apex. Another one in which the plug, it gets pulled way too early. But it seems like there's just a lot of space in this solo. I'm pretty sure on this tour for these shows, Illinois was like right in the middle of the show, and not an encore. But it kind of feels like an encore number, like the solo does. Like Frank's like, this is my last solo of the night. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to toy with you. I'm really into the mood. Like, yeah. And then we're just going to build it and go. Just the overall vibe of this is absolutely fantastic. But yeah, that's my number 2, Illinois Enema Bandit. And number 1, easily, by far, like the entire arrangement of this, everything about this is like just genius level. And that is Cruising for Burgers. It's an instrumental arrangement. The keyboards, the chops and drops in there seem super techno and weird, and the arrangements are super weird, and just the instruments that are used with the keyboards and the horns and O'Hearn's bass. And then when the guitar solo comes in, it starts off with that that part that he always plays, which is kind of light and dancing. And then he just, once they enter the solo section, for maybe the first 30 or 40 seconds, Frank just keeps playing this just over and over and over and over, and just doing it until finally it's like he's like almost like reeling in energy or like pulling in string before he like lets it all go, and then he just takes off. And this solo is like pretty much a full-on attack for the entire, it's like 5.5 minutes long, but it seems like almost every like a minute and 45 seconds, he kind of takes a very brief sort of break and like comes up with like a new motif to kind of build around. Like we'll repeat a phrase a couple times, and slow things down, and use that as like the launching point for like, the second part of the solo, and then the launching point for like the finale of the solo. So even though it is a pretty like aggressive full attack for the entire like 5.5 minutes, it does feel like there's like waves of like maybe 3 separate waves that are coming at, that are like brief little regatherings, but they're definitely there, and definitely keep like the listener engaged, and maybe keep O'Hearn and Bozio on their toes as they're responding to some sort of new energy that Frank's laying down. But it's a fantastic solo. Like, it's up there with like Frank's all-time greats, if you ask me. Cruising for Burgers. So anyways, that's what they look like in writing right there. That's them. Yeah. So there we go. That's what that's what I got. That Purple Lagoon one, man. Yeah, I just can't do that one. I almost put it last, but the guitar playing itself is good. It's just so out of place. But anyways, that's what I got. And where would I place it? I have it right there at number 31. Yeah, right below Roxy and Elsewhere. That Son of Orange County, More Trouble kind of lifts Roxy. Those are pretty epic, even in their shortened versions. So yeah, overall, it's at number 31, right there in the sort of middle-ish of the pack-ish. Cruising for Burgers is great, but I think there are better Tortures, better Illinois. They're just, the best thing on this release. But yeah, that's where I got it, 31, as far as ranking it in compared to guitar solos, not other things. But yeah, all right. That's all I got for this one. Short little video. Thanks for watching. Let me know your ranking of your solos on here. I think I covered them all. I don't think I missed anything. I'm always afraid I missed something. But anyways, thanks for watching. Go listen to Cruising for Burgers if you haven't heard it, because it is stupid good, people. It is stupid good. Peace. Talk to you later.